Our reading this morning is from a book called Gather at the Table by Sharon Leslie Morgan and Thomas DeWolf. Sharon Leslie Morgan is an African-American woman, and Thomas DeWolf is a white man, and they decide to journey together to try and understand their own and the nation's history around race, or begin to. The book alternates in chapters and stories that each of them tell, and this is one that Sharon tells. I hope I'm pronouncing this word right. The Lowndes County Interpretive Center is located on the site of a former tent city. Black tenant farmers who participated in voting rights activities were evicted by their white landlords. They banded together and built temporary encampments where they lived for almost 2 years as the voting rights struggle continued. The brutality of white people contrasted sharply with the resilience and courage of the black people seeking rights that were supposed to be guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. Evidence of this struggle was all over the center. This was a place I was adamant about visiting. My father's family came out of slavery in this county. It is very personal to me. As anticipated, my emotions are raw and at the surface. Back in the car for our return to Montgomery, I say, it definitely gives me insight into how my ancestors would walk out of slavery and get as far as possible from this place, and how my grandfather and father would never come back. I pause and stare straight ahead through the windshield. I have to stop talking about it. We drive in silence. The hot Alabama air blows through the open windows as we speed along Highway 80, thinking about how long and difficult the struggle for democracy was, though touted in 1776 to be available to everyone. After an already emotionally exhausting day, we arrive in Montgomery in the late afternoon. We park downtown across the street from the Rosa Parks Museum at Troy University. This is the site where Mrs. Parks entered the portals of history by refusing to give up her seat on a bus in 1955. Her action yet led to a year-long boycott of public transportation in Montgomery. The museum offers interpretation, lectures, seminars, storytelling, and other programs. Artifacts include original documents and a replica of the bus Mrs. Parks rode that day. We greet Georgette Norman, the museum's director, who gives us a personal tour. Norman describes the museum as experiential. We don't try to rewrite history, she said. We let people experience it as they would have experienced it at that time. They make up their own mind. For instance, school children come here and we take them to the events of 1955. White children say they would never have been part of the gang mentality of that time. Of course they would. They do what the culture of the gang says. People don't pay enough attention to how influential culture is in which we live. We go along with the culture. She escorts us to the Cleveland Avenue Time Machine in the children's wing. On this oversized bus, a simulated robot bus driver navigates a high-tech ride through time. Room-sized video screens, sound, and other special effects transport us to a street scene from the beginnings of the Jim Crow era. We visit Dred Scott, Harriet Tubman, Homer Plessy, and other significant figures from long ago. What we see makes it obvious Things don't just happen in history. People make things happen.